encourage your soul, enlighten your mind, and empower your faith. This is the Light Network. Hello and welcome to Preachers in Training. This is the podcast on which we discuss all things preaching and ministry. We're coming to you from the exhibit hall floor at Polishing the Pulpit in Sevierville, Tennessee. We've got people wandering about here in the exhibit hall. We're looking forward to opportunities like these because we get to sit down with people we don't always get to be in the same room with, and that's the case today as we welcome back to the podcast David Sproule. Hello, sir. How you doing?
Good to be with you again.
Thank you for coming and carving out some time for us. You've been busy speaking and just busy in general. You're just a busy person, and so thanks for carving out some time for me.
This is always fun. Always fun to sit down with you.
It.
Talk about the Lord's Word, talk about preaching.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
That's fun stuff.
You are one of the ministers there at the West Palm Beach Lakes?
Palm Beach Lakes, yeah.
Palm Beach Lakes Church of Christ in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Yeah, it's a mouthful.
I always get that mixed
It's
up.
a mouthful.
That's sort of like when I was at North Charleston, South Carolina. It's like, well, if we can work in East and West somehow, we'd have it all.
You'd have it covered.
You guys do a wonderful work, and you're involved in a lot of great things, including like you guys are the overseeing congregation of Apologetics Press and stuff like that.
We've got a close relationship with them.
That's pretty cool.
I don't know how much overseeing is involved there, but
good.
very special relationship for the last couple decades.
That's cool.
With just a great work, as you know.
Oh yeah. Well, I love that, and appreciate all you guys do. If you're ever down in that part of Florida, you ought to go and check them out, Palm Beach Lakes.
Love to have you. It's a ways down there, though. You
takes forever.
You got to be intending to go there. You don't end up there by accident.
If you're coming from this side of the state, you cross the state line and you think, I got to be getting close. No, you're not close.
You're not close.
You
still got 300 miles.
300 miles. Wow. Okay. Today we're going to talk about bewaring self-righteousness. Bewaring sounds like a weird word. Anyway,
it does.
Being aware of self-righteousness. We're assigned a topic similar to this one here at this conference.
Yes.
I like to try and help my guests out when I can, and so syndication is a wonderful thing, and we're going to adapt it to our audience here on Preachers in Training. But we were talking before we hit the record button, and you said that your mind, when you started sort of fleshing out this topic, naturally went to Matthew 23, and that is not one of the more optimistic chapters of the gospel accounts.
Okay. No, it's not. And I said that right up front, on this topic, kind of introduced it, just the subject of self-righteousness from scribes and Pharisees. But I said right before we got into the main points, I said, look, you didn't come to this lesson for warm fuzzies.
Yeah, I mean,
when you see self-righteousness on the list of topics, you're like, oh, wow, this can make me feel good.
You knew what you were getting into.
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Same thing with this episode. You hit play. You saw it said, beware self-righteousness.
There you go.
So you know it. What do you think it is about religious leaders, public teachers, that can make us slant toward, shall we just say, Phariseeism, if we can paint with a broad brush for a moment? I mean, here are these guys, the scribes and the Pharisees are the experts in the law. They are the foremost scholars of the law of Moses in the first century. And yet that's the group of people that Jesus took the greatest issue with during his earthly ministry. Yeah. It tells me there's a temptation there. I think about what James says, not everybody needs to be a teacher, and you need to think about the stricter judgment that you're going to have.
Right.
Well, you got any thoughts on what is it about being in the public eye like this that can slant us toward the ways that could have lead down the same roads that the Pharisees went down?
Oh, I mean, that's a great question, and I think it's something that we've got to be on guard against. And I think you said it in the question. It's we're in the public eye, and when for some individuals when they start getting that attention and feel it, and especially scribes and Pharisees, they're well respected because wow, these guys know the law, and they can tell it to us better than anybody else, and so that can just start going to your head, on getting that kind of attention, and so that's just something we've got to watch out for.
In this part of the reason, we push against the pastor model, not only the singular pastor model, not only because obviously it's unbiblical, but also it elevates a preacher far above where the New Testament or really where anybody ought to be. And there are a lot of folks who, if I got a Bible question, I'm going to go ask the preacher.
Right.
I can understand that. I mean, we do spend a lot of time studying God's Word. Maybe we've come across it. Maybe we've answered that question before. Right. I'm not saying that's a bad thing to do, but I just think the nature of the beast of ministry and public preaching can often lend itself to people putting us on pedestals, and if we're not careful, we may allow ourselves to stay up there.
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
And that's so dangerous. And part of it is it feels good. It feels good to be loved. It feels good to be admired and respected. And okay, these people, and we may get into this as we discuss it, but when people are constantly telling you stand out in the lobby after a sermon, when you're constantly hearing, good job, good job, and it's,
I've never heard one like that.
Right.
And it's like, I know I preached one similar a year and a half ago.
Yeah. So, after a while that can easily just start influencing you if you don't have a filter set up on that.
Have you noticed too, and I know that I had a lesson this week on distrust, and so I guess it's on my mind, but there are a lot of news stories about, preachers, ministers who have abused and misused their power in their situations in a variety of ways. But by and large, I've found people give, at least me, the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes when I don't deserve the benefit of the doubt. And you see it when people jokingly say things like, "Oh, I better not talk like that because the preacher's around."
Right.
And I think, well, they think that I'm not a normal person like they are.
Exactly.
But that can also lead me to inflate myself.
It absolutely can. And that's where I think that we've got to be an average member of the congregation, and not set ourselves above, make sure we're not putting ourselves in the elite status.
Yeah. We have to recognize we are average members.
Yes. and we need to act like, and so when there's work days, that I need to be there. I used to appreciate, especially, this is kind of off subject, but, we would have work days where, we'd, the Sunday or the Saturday before our gospel meeting. All right, let's everybody come and let's clean up the appearance of the grounds and the building and all of that. And so we'd be working outside and cutting limbs and cleaning up the parking lot. And hot weather down in South Florida. You know, and by and large, almost every one of my elders was always there. For the work days. And it was just, to me, that was a message that the elders are here for the work days too. It's not it's for the members to do, but the elders don't really get their hands dirty. Well, but that's a message to preachers too. We're not some elite where when it's time for a work day or when it's time, hey, the potluck is over. Okay, I'm out of here. No, there's garbage cans there the garbage needs to be taken out, and we're not above wiping the tables down or taking the garbage out, and in fact, I think it's good for us to get involved in that so that, the members see us as, okay, he's not the elite status. He is just a common guy. And I think that's important.
Yeah, I agree. So in just a moment, you're going to share with us from Matthew 23. I think you have, 10 points. How do you describe these? Are these identifiers of self-righteousness, or how would you say that these are?
Identifiers, qualities, 10 things that self-righteous individuals, at least my survey of the chapter, that self-righteous individuals get involved in. Okay. They kind of look like this, and the first one I grabbed was from Romans 10 because talking about self-righteousness, I couldn't leave Romans 10 alone. But when I got the topic, Matthew 23 was just essentially the first thing that I thought of, because where else do you see self-righteousness illustrated any better than what Jesus says? I mean, 7 woes to these scribes and Pharisees. Okay, you better pay attention here.
That's good.
And yet, I mean, you see the heart of Jesus as you go through it, and then you see his heart at the end. He's like, I would have gathered you like a hen gathers chicks. I wanted you, but you weren't willing. Yeah.
There's no pleasure in what he's about to say there.
No, and that's again. I mean, it's again everything we say has application to us as preachers. That's even those hard sermons that are maybe corrective in nature. You still got to have a heart of love that's coming through in that.
Cool. All right, let's get to go to those here in just a minute or two. Before we do that, I need to tell you about something. We're really glad to get to partner with the Freed-Hardeman University Graduate School of Theology and several other things throughout this season. And I want to know, have you ever dreamed of visiting the Bible lands? Maybe you've been before and you know how much it changes the way you read Scripture. Maybe you've heard friends talk about what a life-changing experience it was for them. Well, Fried Hardeman's Graduate School of Theology wants to help make that dream a reality. As a student in any of their graduate theology programs, you'll have the opportunity to participate in a guided 10-day archaeological dig in Israel. That's a big deal. And here's the incredible part. Because of a generous donor, the entire trip is just $500. You'll tour places like Galilee, Capernaum, the Valley of Elah, Mount Carmel, and even worship in Nazareth and in the Garden of Gethsemane. It's like unreal. You'll also take part in a real archaeological excavation at the site where the tabernacle stood for over 300 years. It's truly a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to see the Bible come alive. If this sounds like something that you or someone you know would love, visit fhu.edu/gradtheology or send an email to gradstudies@fhu.edu to learn more. Once again, that website, fhu.edu/gradtheology. That sounds like a pretty
great
cool deal,
opportunity.
right?
Yeah,
that's
$500
pretty cool.
That's nothing.
That's nice.
Not for that.
Yeah, you need to go and contact those folks over there.
Absolutely.
We're talking to David Sproule about being aware of self-righteousness. And we begin in the book of Romans for the first of 10 things that we need to look out for.
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess we need to get through these kind of quick, don't we?
Well, I don't know. Depends on how much tape I have left on my cassette over here.
Okay. All right. Well, do you have a side B? I mean, are we just on side A? Or do
Yeah,
you have
we're
a side
still
B?
on side A. I'll
Okay.
have to flip
All
it
right.
over in a minute, but
Okay,
that's
good.
okay.
Good.
Where do we begin today?
Well, again, this was just a topic that was given here at PTP, and so, how do we make ourselves aware of self-righteousness? And so, I went to Matthew 23 eventually, but just started in Romans chapter 10, just in verse 3, just for an awareness of the fact that, what does self-righteousness look like? Self-righteousness is something that an individual might choose to establish their own standard. Instead of, and that's what's happening in chapter 10 and verse 3 of Romans. They're ignorant of God's righteousness, and so they set up or they establish their own righteousness. And so, we need to be, I guess, guard ourselves against setting up our own standard for things, our own measurement for things.
Yes.
And that's where the scribes and Pharisees were masters. They were masters at creating their own standard. Masters, and so that's where they created their traditions that became the standard by which they lived. And so that was just the first point, is just guarding ourselves against being ignorant of God's standard and saying, oh, okay, well, that I'll just establish my own measurement, because if you establish your own measurement, then you can measure yourself against that. Hey, I'm doing pretty good here.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel pretty good. I'm a pretty good person. And all of a sudden I can become self-righteous because I've defined righteousness for self.
Yeah.
So just that idea of making sure I'm not establishing my own kind of standard there.
When you say that out loud like that, it's like, well, why would I ever place myself above the standard of the Bible? But it's easier to do than it's. I mean, we're so good at justifying things.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Yes, we are. And of course, we study with folks. I study with folks, and you hear it so often. I try to make sure it doesn't become a part of me. Where you study with somebody and you'll read a verse and they'll say, "Oh, I know that's what the Bible says, but here's what I feel.
Right.
That God would want me to do." And so what is that? That's setting your own standard.
Yeah.
That's establishing your own.
That's
well,
right.
I know that's what the standard says, but I kind of feel that God would be okay with this. And, that's dangerous territory.
That's right.
For us to enter into.
All right. So number one, we just need to acknowledge that there is a standard, right?
Acknowledge there's a standard, because self-righteous individuals they establish their own standard.
Good. Okay.
So that's number one.
Now we're moving to Matthew 20. I'm noticing you flipping in your Bible. I'm not rushing you away from Romans. I just noticed you turned there.
I don't want us to run out of tape.
Okay, all right.
No, and some of these, these were thoughts that were for a more general audience.
Yeah.
Sure. But after you and I talked a little bit, I think they all have application to us as preachers. Especially.
Good.
Because even establishing our own standard, as preachers, especially, we need to be individuals that are making sure that we're holding up the Scripture as the standard, and we don't get ourselves in the way.
Yes.
You know, and it's not, well, you know, what would David think about this? Well, it doesn't matter what David thinks about this. You know, David's opinion about it doesn't amount to anything.
Yeah.
And so, okay, let's get to the Scripture. What does it have to tell us?
Yeah. Yeah. Love it. All right, where do we go? What's number two?
All right, so Matthew chapter 23. And just kind of step through this. We won't necessarily go into detail about all of these, but just kind of step through this. You get into verse 3, Matthew chapter 23 and verse 3. And so the second thing that the self-righteous would do is they would be good at exhorting, but not executing. Or we might say they don't practice what they preach. And so that's verse 3, that whatever they do, whatever they say, you know, you need to listen to them. You need to observe and do it, because they were teaching the law, but they say and they don't do. They're good at telling you what to do, but not so much good at doing it themselves. And that's got application for preachers, because I mean, what do we do for a living? We get up and we tell people, here's what the Bible tells you that you need to do. And yet, you know, remember Paul in Romans chapter 2 said, those of you who teach, do you teach yourself?
Yes. Right.
And so, you know, those sermons we preach, they've got to start here. They've got to start at home with that application. And, you know, and so I'll tell the congregation sometimes that this has been a hard week because I've been stepping on my toes all week long with this. And so it's you know, as a preacher, it's really easy to shake that finger sometimes, but it's first got to have application at home.
Sometimes that can be a challenge because we're presenting the standard that we have to acknowledge, but in doing so, maybe it comes across like we have it all together. And I'm like you. I try and tell the congregation, like, listen, you know, this is stepping on toes from behind me and extending to the back wall. You know what I mean? I don't know. I guess sometimes we'll have phrases like this: "Let it pass through your own heart before you get it into the pulpit." That application part is so key, and sometimes when you're in the sermon factory mode and it's like, I'm facing the deadline,
right?
I can get up there and I can preach truth, but maybe it hasn't passed through me first.
Yes, and been there, done that.
Yes,
and sometimes while preaching a sermon, it's like, oh,
it hits you.
Yeah. I am saying that. This is saying that, and sometimes it hits even during the sermon. But no, it's got to hit home first before I ever exhort. I need to execute it in my life. And that's just, I mean, that's just kind of the definition of hypocrisy there. You know, they say and they don't do. You know, it's like, and so as a preacher, for sure, you know, the congregation needs to see us not just as the guy who's up front, you know, talking all the time, but is actually living out the Christian life. You know, on a regular basis, you know, with them and with right there in front of them.
Vulnerability isn't a bad thing. Humility, I guess those kind of go hand in hand. Humility and vulnerability.
They do.
It's a good thing.
It is.
So we need to avoid hypocrisy. We need to practice what we preach. All right. This is number 3 now.
Number 3. Yeah. All right. So this is in verse 4. And this, you know, obviously when we think about the Pharisees is what we think they elevate their traditions. And so this talks about where they bind heavy burdens that are hard to bear and lay them on men's shoulders. And, you know, when we elevate our traditions, you know, in some respects, and what the Pharisees were doing is they're making it harder to serve God, and I think we need to guard against. You know, it's the narrow road already, but I don't need to make it more narrow. By my ideas, my opinions. I really think you should think about. You know, Jesus talked about his burden is light. Okay, so what does that mean? His burden is light. You know, his commandments are not burdensome. 1 John 5 and verse 3. So, I mean, obviously, there is a narrow path that we've got to walk, but we don't need to make it harder for ourselves, imposing rules. But we also didn't make it harder by making our opinion some kind of rules that somebody else has to follow.
It can be hard, right, when somebody asks a question and it's within that realm of liberty. And we want to be careful to distinguish. And there are a few passages that are I'm not trying to suggest that the Bible is sometimes unclear or anything, but just it can be a little hairy. How exactly do we apply this?
Yes.
And some people may apply it this way, and some people may apply it that way, and the biblical text gives us the authorization to do either of those.
Right.
We probably have a strong opinion on that. It's probably a studied opinion on that.
Yes.
And
True.
if we're going to beware self-righteousness, we shouldn't put ourselves in the position to legislate something that God didn't.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. And just keeping, again, I mean, we're going to say this, but just keeping ourselves out of the way and saying, okay. And you're right about matters of liberty, is just saying this is in the realm of expediency, of judgment. And okay, here are some options for us, but not, sometimes I think especially for newer Christians, as they are learning things that, they didn't realize, I need to be doing that. I'm not supposed to be doing that.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, that way starts to begin to become even more and more narrow than they thought it was. But at the same time, we need to help them to see, wait a minute, there's a reason for this, it's not that God's making laws just to make laws, but, I think about Deuteronomy 6 and verse 24, that, God's commandments are always for our good. There's a reason behind this, but to help them to see that, this is a burden, if you want to call it that. These are rules, if you want to call it that. But there are reasons behind them, but not make extra rules in order, like the Pharisees were doing, we don't want to violate God's law, so let's just keep these around here.
Yes, that's right. So they would. I'm trying to think of a good example of this. They would tithe all the way down to the spices and everything that were in the house, stuff like that. They were just taking it places that God never even intended.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Got it.
And that's, he's going to say that here. They're straining out the gnat, but then they're swallowing the camel. They're going to extremes and then missing what was right in front of them. And that's dangerous. Yeah. It's dangerous even for us.
It can be hard to self-diagnose something like that, right?
Very hard.
What suggestions? Do we need good people around us? Do we need our wives to be able to say, hey, time out? Elders?
Those two right there.
Okay, wives and elders.
I think we need to have an open line with our wives that says, look, at any time, I'm blessed with a wife who's my biggest cheerleader, and preachers need those.
Yes.
But they also need a wife who's going to say, hey, have you thought about this? Or, hey, that kind of came across. Or, hey, just, not as a critic, but just as a friend.
Did you mean it like that? Yeah. That's good.
So, and of course the elders, right at the top of that list too. Okay. Because they're the shepherds. They're the ones who are responsible for feeding the flock, tending the flock, leading the flock. We're just a mouthpiece to help them in that. So, the elders, they need to be able to say, hey, that came across this way, or, did you mean it this way? And just to make sure that, we're working as a team, all going in the same direction.
Good.
Absolutely.
I love what you said, too, about just helping people understand that it is a joy to obey God and to submit to God's will, and I guess you could call it a burden. Jesus said, my burden, but then he said, is light.
Right.
So it's a joy to follow Jesus and to submit to his will. Yeah. I've come that they might have life and life more abundantly. Right. And so I don't mean to say, I guess we should say it this way. You could spin obedience to God's commands in a way that makes it burdensome.
Oh, absolutely.
Or you could reflect the biblical teaching, which is, this is a joy to get to do.
Yes.
And God gave me these things, as you mentioned, for my good.
Yes, absolutely. The parable of the treasure, that he, for joy over it, he sold all that he had. And we think, wait a minute, he gave up everything he had to have the church. Wait a minute, you've lost it all, but for joy over it. When you find the treasure of the church, of the gospel of Christ, the joy over it will cause you to do things that other people look at you and say, that's different. But it's the value that we find in righteousness is and that's, what is it? is that 1 Peter chapter 1, verse 8. I'm losing the verse, but just talks about that our joy is inexpressible.
Oh, yeah.
You know, what does that inexpressible means?
Yeah.
You know, inexpressible indicates I can't exactly put it into words and tell you exactly what I mean by this, but the joy that I have right here, 1 Peter 1, verse 8, whom having not seen you love, though now you do not see him, yet believing, you rejoice with joy inexpressible and full of glory, receiving the end of your faith, the salvation. But just that idea of inexpressible joy. We know, to me, I always, when I read that verse, I think about, you know, the peace that passes understanding.
Yeah.
You know, I can't. There's a peace I have, can't understand it.
Right.
There's a joy I have, I can't explain it.
Yeah.
It's inexpressible. I don't.
Good.
But I know what that is, and it's serving the Lord, and that just brings me pure joy. It ought to.
I love it. All right, let's go to number 4 then.
All right. Number 4 is in verses 5 through 8, and this is just, and again, this is the obvious one when we think about scribes and Pharisees, but they exalt themselves before men, and that's the beginning of verse 5. All of their works they do to be seen by men. But then Jesus gives some illustrations here. You know, all their works they do to be seen by men, and then to me they start kind of showing off. They say, okay, look at how religious I am. Yeah. I've got these phylacteries that are broad. I've got the borders of my garments that are enlarged. Look at how religious I am. Well, okay, we need to guard against that. Yeah. And then verse 6, look at how important I am. When I come in, I ought to have the best seat reserved for me, because that's how important I am. And look at how elite, how educated I am. When I come in the marketplace, you better greet me as Rabbi. You know, that's how I expect to be greeted when you see me, because I am of that, you know, upper echelon of elite. And so why are they doing this? Verse 5, to be seen by men. Yeah. And boy, that's I didn't make the application for preachers in the general audience today with this lesson, but this is something for us because we are in the spotlight. We literally are being seen by men on a weekly basis. Yeah. But that shouldn't be our motivation in this. And again, they should be recognizing, you know, the verse 6 grabs me when I read about, you know, they come into the feast and they expect the best seats. Yeah. Man, the preacher should never come into, you know, this is reserved for me. Yeah. You know, when I go in gospel meetings and they make the preacher go through the fellowship line first, the potluck, it bothers me to no end. Me too. But some guys, I'm right here. Let me go through first. Yeah. You know, I don't know if I've seen too many brotherhood congregations that have it, but you know, I've been to some other groups that, you know, they got a special parking spot for their preacher, you know, reserved for so and so. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, what does that say? It's they want special seats at the love feasts. Yeah. And we got to be careful about that.
Jesus says, "The greatest among you will be a servant. Yep. First will be last. Yep. Don't look out for yourself, but for others." Yeah. And we need to be modeling that, and maybe sometimes that looks like, at least at home, I like to go last in the fellowship meal line. Yeah. Always. That usually means I'm cleaning up the scraps, but that means it's all fair game, too, so
yes,
that's okay.
Yes, you can get whatever you want and as much as you want.
As much as you want, that's right.
Yeah, we've got a rule at home that when you go through the line, you can't table hop. You just you pick your line and you stay in your lane. That's right. Unless you're at the back of the line.
If you're at back, you can hop all around.
Yeah, you have to.
You have to.
In order to get a plate full, you've got to. But yes, I mean, that the preacher, he ought to be in the back. Yeah. Because too often he's being pushed in the front anyway, so he needs to hold himself back.
That's right. Entitlement is very dangerous.
It is.
Yeah. All right, boy. There's a sermon in every one of these.
That's Jesus for you.
I know.
I mean, he just drops all of these right here for you. All right.
We better get to number 5.
Right. So next one is they engage, self-righteous, they engage in word games. They play word games. Oh. And this is verses 16 through 22, where Jesus is talking about the oaths that they would take. You know, if they swore by the temple, hey, no big deal, you don't have to keep that oath. But if you swore by the gold of the temple, that's different. No, it's not different. Right. It's the same, but they're playing word games. But the point I think that helps us as preachers is, you know, we don't need to use terms. We don't need to speak things that complicate understanding for people. You know, here they were saying, if you understood this like we understood it, you would understand that the gold is different than the temple. And the average person would be like, what do you mean this? And so we need to make sure that we don't allow, ourselves. We know the Bible, should know the Bible, and to a level that maybe some other folks don't know it in the congregation, but we don't need to shine that. Oh, well, if you understood the Bible the way I understood, then you would know what this means. No. We're right down on the level using simple. The Bible's a simple word. We just need to use Bible words in the way that the Bible uses them.
Absolutely. I know that I'm not the smartest person in the room when I walk in.
Oh, wow.
Because I've got, Frieda Hardeman University professors out there, and I'm thinking, what am I doing up here? Can Clyde Woods please come up here and not me?
Yeah, I feel for you there.
Thank you. I appreciate the sympathy.
Absolutely. Yes. No, but that's, to me, that's being here at PTP. I mean, when I'm, first of all, I'm asked to speak, and I'm like, you want me to speak?
Yeah.
And then I get up to speak, and I'm looking around the room, and I'm like, why am I the one up here when he should be, and he should be? Why am I speaking when he's in the room?
Yes. Me too.
Makes me a little uneasy.
But anywhere, I mean, you've got your engineer, you've got a medical doctor, you've got a community college professor. I mean, whatever's going on, and I'm thinking, these guys, I mean, I've heard them teach Bible class. They could run circles around what I'm doing up here right now.
Yeah. So I mean,
humility.
I mean, and that's where we're going to end when we get through this. I mean, but the whole thing is just gushing with what's the cure for this? It's humility.
Good.
That's where you got to go.
Yeah.
Now, the number 7 here was one that I thought about for a long time.
Did we skip 6 or did I miscount?
I think. Let me double check.
Hold on.
I think we've covered them all.
Okay.
Establish your own standard. Number 1. Exhort, but don't execute.
Okay.
Elevate their own traditions. Exalt themselves before men.
Yeah.
Number 5. Oh, I did skip number 5.
Oh, hey. It's the host's job to stay on track. That's all I'm doing.
Well, I mean, I have a hard time counting. That's why I became a preacher.
Oh, yeah, that's right. We don't do numbers.
Well, David got in trouble in the Bible for counting, so
that's
I determined I'll just, I won't worry about it. I did skip number 5. All right, so I jumped to numbers. All right. Anyway, back to number 5, whatever that was. All right,
good.
So self-righteous is verse 13 and verse 15. They evangelize for themselves.
Oh,
this is
I'm
tricky.
glad we didn't skip this one. This is good.
Yeah. I'm glad you noted that we skipped number 5. But so scribes and Pharisees, and we don't think about evangelism here, but I mean, it's verse 13. For you shut up the kingdom of men, the kingdom of heaven against men, for you neither go in yourselves, nor do you allow those who are entering to go in. Verse 15, you travel land and sea to win one proselyte, and when he's won, you make him twice as much a son of hell as yourselves. If we use the word evangelism in the way that we would think of evangelism, they're going out to win people, but what are they winning them to? Well, they're winning them to themselves, to their own fanaticism, to their own, well, you come over here, you can be one of us. But, when they make them like themselves, of course, Jesus says, now you're both sons of hell. I mean, this is...
Strong words.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So going down a direction where making your efforts to reach people for God, your efforts are actually about yourself and focused on yourself. And I obviously want to be very careful in the application of that.
Right.
But Jesus drops this in here for a reason. That the efforts that they were engaged in reaching out to individuals was not for the betterment of the individual, nor was it to actually draw the person to God, but was to say, "Hey, look at me.
Yeah.
Look at how you can become like me." Obviously, I think personal evangelism needs to be something that preachers are right at the forefront in setting the example, being involved in. But preachers need to be careful that it's not about me, and it's not you've got to do it my way.
Yes.
We just had a session with Doug Burleson talking about there's a multitude of different tools out there for individuals to use, and dozens of different ways you can sit down and study the Bible with somebody. And there's not a right or wrong method necessarily. It's just find one that works for you. But just making sure that the evangelism is the focus is not self-righteous. It's not about hey, look at how much I'm doing here.
Right. We're not converting them to us and our thoughts. We're not even converting them necessarily to our congregation.
Yes, right.
We're converting them. We're wanting them to be converted to Jesus.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And that's unfortunately, sometimes that's the point that we miss.
Yeah.
You know, we're so eager to convert somebody to our church, or convert them to the necessity of baptism, or convert them to this or that we're like, wait a minute, what's the ultimate goal here?
Yeah.
We're trying to get this person into a right relationship with Jesus so that they can spend an eternity with him.
Yeah.
And all I'm just a piece of conduit. You
Yes.
know, I mean, there's electricity running throughout my house, but there's conduit, you know, that electricity is running through. What's the conduit? It's nothing. It's just it's getting the electricity where it needs to go.
That's right.
And that's all we are.
Yeah.
I'm nothing fancy, just a piece of conduit.
And that what you just said doesn't demean the necessity of baptism.
Oh, no.
It doesn't demean the importance of the New Testament church and even the local congregation.
No way.
It just makes sure that we don't put the cart before the horse.
Right.
That's a crude analogy, but anyway.
No,
we can think of it that way.
That's it exactly.
Yeah.
And you know, and it's so important that when it comes to evangelism, that you know, we can look at what various groups, what various congregations are doing. You know, and even for us, you know, South Florida is a different place than Middle Tennessee.
Yes.
You know, we're not in the Bible Belt.
Sure.
And so it doesn't mean we teach a different gospel.
Yes.
By any stretch. But sometimes you have to start in a different place.
Yeah.
Than you would in some other place.
Mm-hmm. Good. All right, now number 6, shall we?
All right, so that number 5 was the self-righteous evangelize for self.
Yeah.
Number 6 was they engage in word games. So that was the one that we did that I skipped.
Okay.
All right,
Now we're at 7.
Now we're at 7.
Oh, good.
All right, so
wow.
Number 7, and this one I thought about for a while, and I thought, no, I think that we need to deal with it. This is verse 23 and 24, where Jesus is dealing with the tithes, and he says, "Woe to you, scribes, Pharisees, hypocrites! For you pay tithe of mint, anise, and cumin, and have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faith. These you ought to have done without leaving the others undone." You know, tithing is giving to God. Giving to God is an act of worship. And so what I did with this is I made an application here in regards to worship, and I said that the self-righteous, sometimes what they end up doing is emphasizing the particulars of worship over the purpose of worship.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is, and I don't want to be misunderstood by any stretch here, but I think sometimes we may put our emphasis on, well, you know, we worship on the first day of the week, not the Sabbath. We partake of the Lord's Supper every Sunday. We don't have instrumental music. We have men and not women in leadership positions. And all of those are absolute necessities, and we can't compromise them.
Right.
But if we've got all of those right, does that mean that our worship is acceptable and right to God because we've checked off all of those boxes? Or maybe on a more practical level of just some of the mechanics of worship, we focus so much on, okay, how many songs are we going to have?
Yeah.
Which songs are we singing? You know, when is the sermon? When is the Lord's Supper? You know, and for congregations deciding, are we going to pass the trays? Are we going to do the disposable thing? We focus so much on mechanics that, hang on, but yes, all of those are essential. But could it be that we've made the worship about checking boxes off for ourselves? How are the men dressed?
Yeah.
You know, how much time are we going to be done in an hour? We have to be done in an hour.
Yeah,
you know, and so all of these things that we've made to be important about worship. Okay, but what's our purpose here?
Right.
Our purpose here is to glorify God. Now, we've got to do it in authorized manner 100%. It's got to be done decently and in order 100%. But it also has got to be, and that to me, that was the weightier matters.
Yeah.
You know, that they focus in, wow, they're pulling out their spices and counting out 1/10 of their spices. That's real dedication. We're really dedicated to the mechanics. We're really dedicated to the authorized method of worship.
Yeah.
Got to do it. But we can't overlook the weightier matters, if you want to use that word weightier. But just to say, we're here to glorify God.
Right.
And we've got to make sure that that's the real focus of what we're doing. Otherwise, worship could become self-righteous.
Yeah. I remember back in Isaiah 1, you know, he says, I don't want your sacrifices.
Right.
And you think, wait a minute, didn't he command the sacrifices?
Exactly.
But he said, it's the spirit with which you're offering them.
Right.
You know, just the fact that you showed up, that's not sufficient.
Right. Exactly. So, you know, and that can be personal too. You know, I can, not just as a preacher, just as a Christian, I can come to the worship assembly, as you say, and I can be present and, you know, and make the worship about, okay, I'm here, I'm singing, I put money in the plate, I did this, I did that. Well, then worship becomes self-focused rather than am I truly glorifying God in what I'm doing?
That's the challenge, I think, for everybody in worship, but especially as a preacher, the temptation is, do I have all my points? Is all that in my head just right? Or how am I supposed to preach this sermon after the conversation I had between Bible class and worship?
Yeah.
And I'll miss the whole point if I'm not careful.
Absolutely, and that's you're right. For preachers especially, that is a weekly challenge. Is to not just be present, but to be worshiping in the and that's I love coming to PTP, because I can sit in a worship assembly on Sunday and I'm not thinking about all right, does that fit better here or here?
I know,
am I going to be able to get through this in time?
Is he going too long in this prayer?
Exactly. Boy, people are going to think that I'm the one.
That's right. It's not it's the song leader.
So right, and so from the preacher perspective, it becomes a real challenge.
Or worse than these examples, to treat the sermon as though it's the be all end all of worship. Which can be difficult, right? Because we're very passionate about what we've said, and we've spent the better part of the last week preparing to say it.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean that we're the stars of the show.
No, we're not. And sometimes even the wording of a prayer or the wording of some other person in the worship assembly can make it look like, everything's pointing towards the sermon and getting ready for, and I know it's the longest, especially where I am. It's the longest part. It's the longest part of the worship.
Is that how they say it now? The longest part is the sermon.
So I get that. It's the longest part of the worship, and so it looks like, okay, this is the real heart and focus. But you're right. We've got to make sure we're careful about that.
Okay. Keep the main thing, or
that's right.
As we're using Jesus' terms here, the weightier matters.
That's right.
All right, that was number 7.
That was number 7. You're
okay,
right. All right, we're not skipping anymore.
No,
right,
no.
So number 8 is the self-righteous externalize holiness, and this is just verse 25 through 28. Okay. And again, the typical thing we think of with the scribes and Pharisees is they're focused on the outside of the cup instead of the inside of the cup.
Okay.
They're focused on making sure the outside of the tomb is clean, but well, look at the inside. Right. So it's just focused on the externals. And again, I think this is a great application for us as preachers. It's just we can't put on a show. We can't just dress up in our Sunday best and we show up and we put on a smile and and we get up and we preach a sermon, and okay, that's what he's here to do. We've got to make sure our heart is into everything that we're doing and focus where it needs to be.
And once again, that may be something our elders or especially our wives can help us with, but by and large, this is a self-policed kind of thing. Nobody can really look at me and know one way or the other.
Yeah.
And I firmly believe there's a difference between being a hypocrite and leading with my best foot forward, right?
Yes.
We all want to lead with our better parts rather than our worst. But we're going to keep this in check.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Number 9.
All right, let's get through these quick.
Yeah.
Number 9 is just the self-righteous. They emulate the past blindly.
Oh.
And what Jesus talked about here with scribes and Pharisees is that verses 29 through the rest of the chapter, through verse 36 anyway, is that they're looking at the prophets of old and they're saying, we're not like them, we're better than they are, and holding themselves up above them, and yet Jesus says, hang on, you're actually emulating the past, you just don't realize. And so it's just making sure we're not using the past as our barometer for good or for bad. To say, I'm better. I'm better than the preacher who used to be here before me. So I'm doing pretty good here. Or to use a barometer says, I haven't had any complaints, or and it's making sure that the past, whether good or bad, is not our barometer for where we are and where we need to go in serving the Lord.
Yeah. We can't explain why people in the past did some of the things that they did, especially in our congregational history. I've said since COVID, I hope the history books look back on the decisions that were made, particularly by elderships, with grace.
Yes.
History doesn't tend to do that.
No.
But I'm prayerful that it will, because maybe we'll tell our children when they're older, or our grandchildren one day, we did our best in those moments.
Right.
And I can't help but think that the generations before us, and a lot of people, my generation, millennials and younger, we want to criticize the former generations, and maybe there's room for criticism. There's room for criticism in the present.
Yes.
But we have to at least believe that those guys were doing the very best they
Right.
could in those moments.
Yeah. And making sure that we're not, as a congregation or as a preacher, but as a congregation, say, hey, this has been a strong, solid, sound congregation for decades.
Rest on our laurels.
It's just going to, and it always will be.
Yeah.
Well, hang on a second. I mean,
that's right.
Yes, we've had a good, solid history, but we've got to continue to make sure we're on the right path.
Good.
Let me mention number 10 real quick,
Okay.
but then I want to talk about the cure for just a minute.
Good.
Because these are kind of downers.
Yeah, I'm getting a little depressed over here.
It's just like, oh, great. I mean, this is not. So, all right, so number 10 is just kind of the overall chapter. The whole chapter is just the self-righteous. They exclude themselves from accountability. They're just like, oh, this isn't my it's everybody else's problem and not mine. And they don't take accountability for issues that they create, the issues that come up. Yeah. And we as preachers, we've got to guard against that. That we don't elevate ourselves above a criticism or say, well, that's not my problem. But anyway, so there's 10 qualities, actions, whatever you want to call them.
They're challenging.
Of self-right, and they are.
Yeah.
And Jesus is just whoa, and that ought to grab your attention. But there's 4 verses right in the middle there that we skipped.
Okay.
And to me, this is the cure. And we've used the word humility and humble all throughout this because that's the cure here.
Yeah.
And so Jesus says in verse 12, whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and whoever humbles himself will be exalted. There's the cure for self-righteousness, is to get me out of the way. When I look at my brethren, the end of verse 8 says, remember, you're all brethren. As a preacher, you're one of the brothers. You're no better than somebody else. So, but that applies to all. We're all brethren. That was Abraham to Lot. When there's conflict, and hey, we be brethren. We're going to work this out. So humble ourselves before our brethren. Verse 9, humble ourselves before our Father. Yes. We don't call anybody else our Father in a religious sense, because one is and He's in heaven. He's the holy God, and I need to exalt Him as the holy God. Verse 10, I need to humble myself before my Master, the Christ. He's my teacher. He's the one who's head over me. And then just verse 11 is, I just need to be a servant of all. And that's you've referenced that before. Just taking the heart of a servant. And man, if there's anything that I could emphasize as a preacher, is having the heart of a servant. Yeah. I think that is just so a humble heart of a servant inside the church that doesn't make it about us. It keeps the focus off of us. It says, okay, what can I do for the cause of Christ that points everybody to Christ and away from me? Yeah,
that's right. And you don't worry about, am I going to be honored, or do the people appreciate me, or whatever. I mean, all that'll come in time, and the Lord will provide people to encourage you along the way while you're doing the work for Him. So, it's good stuff.
Yes.
Wow. Thank you. I was just thinking, we've had over 300 episodes. I don't know that we've ever really just walked through Matthew 23 with respect to preachers, but I'm kind of wondering why it took us so long.
but I mean, the guys watching, they ought to walk through it and make their own list.
Yes,
I mean, do better than this. Do better and just say, okay, how could this apply to me? Could I fall into the realm of, we read this and say, whoa, well, at least there's no scribes and Pharisees today.
Right.
Well, okay. Any of these qualities apply to me, and guard against that, because Jesus was not happy with them.
Yes.
And I don't want to bear qualities and engage in things where I'm going to fall into that kind of a realm.
That's a good point. All right. Thank you. Wow, you've challenged us and helped us, and now we've got some homework to do. Okay, so between now and next episode, you need to go and check out Matthew 23 and see where you can improve. I know that I've seen some areas here that have spoken to my heart.
Well, appreciate you,
That's
Robert.
good.
Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
This is great work you have, great encouragement to preachers.
We're glad to get to do it.
Well,
I've told people before, it's kind of selfish because I enjoy it myself and it helps me. But I figure if it helps me, maybe it'll help somebody else.
Absolutely.
He says it's kind of selfish right after he just was told to be humble. You know what I mean.
We all know you, Robert. We know there's not any pride in your body. You're a humble guy.
I hope so. I try and be.
Yes, you are.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Preachers in Training. We'll see you next Thursday. Until then, let's preach the Word.